This podcast contains descriptions of violence against children and adult language and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Suffer the Little Children, the true crime podcast giving voices back to the victims of child abuse and shining a harsh spotlight on the parents, guardians, and caretakers who silence them. I'm your host, Lane, and this is episode 83, Autumn Hallow, Part 2. In episode 82, I told you the first part of the story of 8-year-old Autumn Hallow, a beautiful, bright little girl with unmatched joy for life who was known for her kindness, creativity, thoughtfulness, and determination, who was tortured and abused to death by her father and his wife. It is also a story of parental alienation, a mother's desperate attempts to save her children from their father's abusive household, and the failure of CPS and the Elk River Police Department to intervene in a dire situation that culminated in the death of a child. In this episode, I'll tell you the rest of Autumn's story, beginning with the sentencing hearing of Brett and Sarah Hallow. Later in the episode, you'll hear my conversation with Autumn's mom, Kelsey Kruse, who tried for months to gain access to her daughter. This is part 2 of the heartbreaking story of Autumn Hallow. First, I'd like to give shout-outs to my newest patrons, Leah M. from Bell Gardens, California, Jennifer A. from Martinsburg, West Virginia, Sonia B. from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Val from Degrassi Street. Thank you all so much for your monthly pledges and for contributing toward my goal of devoting myself full-time to the podcast and to Suffer the Little Children blog. I appreciate all of my patrons and all of my listeners more than I could ever tell you. At a sentencing hearing on September 23, 2021, Judge Karen B. Schaumer sentenced 30-year-old Brett Hallow and 28-year-old Sarah Hallow to 480 months, or 40 years, in the Minnesota Department of Corrections. Because the couple's charges included enhancements for particular cruelty, they both received the maximum allowable penalty. Autumn's mom, Kelsey, read a heartbreaking impact statement at the sentencing hearing, which in its entirety is as follows. Autumn was my blonde-haired, blue-eyed, deep-dimpled baby. She was born 6 weeks early, although you'd never know this. She excelled in school and had unimaginable love for her family and friends. She was always jumping everywhere, doing cartwheels and dancing. She loved karaoke, coloring, and being outside. When Autumn would hug you, she would wrap her legs around you and would squeeze so tight. I specifically remember when I went to surprise her at lunch during her last school year. She was coming down the hall, and when she saw me, her face glowed. She ran up and jumped into my arms and wrapped her legs around me. This is a moment I hope I will never forget. Aside from the day Autumn died, today is one of the hardest days of my life. To stand in front of the court and speak about how the selfish acts of Brett and Sarah have affected my life after they took my beautiful daughter from me is so incredibly difficult for me. I believed that one day I would watch Autumn fall in love and she would be a mother and outlive me. I believed these things when I was more naive about evil. So now it's with bittersweet love that I see many of Autumn's friends living the lives they deserve to live, and that she also deserved to live. After Autumn was released to the funeral home, I saw her for the first time. I walked into the room, and she was laying there lifeless and little. Her head was shaved, she had marks on her face and scalp. Under the sheet, her shoulders looked so small. I kept staring at her, trying to recognize her. She did not look like the Autumn that I remember, and I was convinced it was not her. I have a lot of the same feelings after Autumn passed as I did the 7 months she was withheld from me before she passed. The feelings are just magnified. I missed her then, but now I miss her more. I was confused and angry, but now I'm more confused and angrier. Day after day, I mourned the loss of Autumn before she even died. I didn't know what was happening to her. I didn't understand why I couldn't talk to her or see her. I think about that last week before her death. Starving, sick, and full of pain. I wish I knew. I wish I broke into their house and saved her. I wish I could have nursed her back to health and she was still here. I think about that all the time. I live with these thoughts every day. Autumn was so excited to be a big sister when I had my youngest daughter. Sadly, she only got to meet her a couple times. Even though our house is full of pictures of Autumn, my daughter will never truly know her big sister. Having lost a child, something you never think will happen to you, I'm terrified of losing another one of my children because I know it's possible. My son, who was also a victim of Brett and Sarah's abuse, lost his best friend when Autumn was taken from us. He knows that could have happened to him, and he knows some of the pain she went through. I'm afraid he will grow up to be anything like his father. I hope I saved him in time to not affect his future. The hardest part is not that my daughter is dead. It's how she died, how she suffered. Imagining how much pain she was in. Every day I wake up and I will suffer until I go to sleep, thinking about this. I think losing a child is the greatest loss you can endure. I find peace knowing my kids never have to look into the eyes of their abusers again. Autumn no longer has to feel terrified, unloved, or unwanted. She is safe, and she's with me again. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not more, know about what happened to Autumn, but I live with it every day. I lay in bed and close my eyes and picture what she looked like days before she died. I imagine what she was thinking or how she felt. The what-ifs and should-haves destroy me inside, and the guilt weighs so much. I'm afraid I will forget the way her voice sounded when she would say Mom, or I'll forget what she looked like without looking at a picture. Brett and Sarah ruined my life, my children's lives, my family's lives, and their families' lives. They not only robbed my daughter of her life, but me of my future. I will never be known as just Kelsey Kruse anymore. I'll be known as the person whose daughter was horrifically murdered by her father and stepmother. Kelsey also read a statement from Autumn's now 11-year-old brother, NH, which read in part, "Even though I know they are locked up, I feel like my dad or Sarah is watching me through my bedroom window at night. I know my dad and Sarah aren't getting a life sentence, but they took my little sister's life from her and they deserve to spend the rest of their life in prison." Sherburne County Attorney Kathleen Heaney said, "The loss of a child is grievous. The loss of a child at the hands of two who were entrusted to care for that child is beyond comprehension. While there is no measure in the criminal justice system that accounts for the loss, I hope that the sentencing today will allow the family, friends, and community some modicum of comfort knowing that those whose acts led to the loss of Autumn Hallow were held accountable." During the hearing, Sarah Hallow broke down, apologizing to the family, whose civil attorney, Rich Hector, later said, "So while the words may have been uttered like, 'I'm sorry,' I don't think there was enough true remorse or guilt behind it." Brett Hallow did not make a statement during the hearing. Of their 40-year sentences, Brett and Sarah are expected to spend 27 years in prison, with the remaining 13 years to be served under supervised release. The judge informed the defendants that disciplinable offenses committed while in prison could earn them additional prison time. I can't help hoping they're on their worst behavior. Brett Jason Hallow is incarcerated in the Minnesota Correctional Facility at St. Cloud. Sarah K. Hallow is currently serving her sentence at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Shakopee, where she may have the chance to rub elbows with other child killers I've written about, namely Cheyenne Henches, the mother of baby Eli Arispe Henches, whose story I told in a recent episode, as well as Kelly Jo Anderson, the foster mother of 2-year-old Henry Anderson, who you'll hear about in an episode very soon. Someday in the not-too-distant future, I would hope Elise Nelson will be joining them. Elise is a Minnesota mother accused of killing her 13-year-old daughter with special needs, Kylie Larson. I also plan to tell Kylie's story on the podcast. Kelsey spoke with 5ABC about the very special tree planted in her front yard in memory of her precious daughter.
It's actually called an autumn blaze maple. I see it every day and it's going to grow with us too, just like she would have.
In January of this year, Kelsey and her longtime boyfriend, Justin Osterbauer, got engaged. I wish them and their family all the happiness in the world. In May, Kelsey's attorneys filed a $30 million federal lawsuit on her behalf against Sherburne County Child Protection and the Elk River Police Department for their failure to intervene in the situation to protect Autumn. That lawsuit is ongoing. Kelsey and her family and friends have implemented the Have a Happy Heart Fridays campaign on the In Memory of Autumn Hallow Facebook page. Have a Happy Heart was Autumn's motto, and Kelsey encourages others to live by it as well by performing random acts of kindness in Autumn's memory. I was recently honored to have a conversation with Kelsey, which I'll share with you now, Thank you so much for joining me, Kelsey.
You're welcome.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about Autumn? She sounds like just an awesome kid.
She is. She's so amazing. Well, she was born 6 weeks early, and she was born when her brother was 11 months, so they were less than a year apart. And I had just turned 20 when I had her. Super overwhelming as a young parent to have two little kids under a year.
I bet.
Yeah, it all came so naturally though. And, things were fine. I lived with my parents most of the time. They were very supportive, and they had a really good upbringing. They had everything they needed, and they got along so well. They were best friends.
Yeah, they look like it. The photos of them together are just so cute.
Yeah, they're each other's best friends and did everything growing up together and liked a lot of the same things. And Autumn was really into gymnastics, was one of her biggest hobbies. She had gymnastic mats and balance beams. She wore her leotards all the time. Even on her birthday, she wore one. Just always bouncing around the house and showing us new things that she learned. And she also really loved to write and color. She would always make us cards and to write our names. She would always write her friends' names on everything. She loved her friends. She was just very full of love, and she loved to love,
Yeah.
Always hearts everywhere, and just saying she loved everyone, and she was such a great person. And, she was so understanding to everyone and giving and understanding. She was the best.
Yeah, she definitely sounds like an awesome kid and so full of life and energy, and creative and smart and just everything you want your kids to be.
Exactly.
Were you and Brett still together when Autumn was born?
Yes and no. It was a very on and off relationship, the whole relationship, which was a total of 4 years we were together.
Did he show you any signs of being an abusive person while he was with you, or was he fairly normal?
No, fairly normal. I mean, sometimes, we would have arguments that were just verbal. Mm-hmm. Other than that, no, nothing ever physical or never scared me or anything like that.
And you guys split custody pretty much half and half?
Yeah, in 2013, it was 50-50 legal and physical. So completely shared. It was 50-50. So it was every other week. I would have the kids for a full week, and then he would have them for a full week.
Wow, that must have been tough.
It was. It never got easier.
Yeah, I imagine. I love what you're doing with the page. It's just such an inspiring story.
Yeah, definitely. We would never want to lose her memory. So like with her bear that we did, we take that everywhere with us almost. It's always, at family gatherings or when we take important family pictures or on vacation, that's always with us, so that she is.
So you had a bear made?
It was her bear that she made at Build-A-Bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she made it quite a few years back, and then we brought it to Build-A-Bear and got recordings put in the hands. One says her name and one is her laughing, so you can hear her voice, and then we have some of her ashes in a box inside of it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
So she loved school?
Yes. She was really good at school. She was very smart.
Yeah, she seems like it.
Yeah, she was, wanted to learn. She wanted to go to school. She loved her teachers. She loved being at school and loved being around her friends. She just loved everything about it.
So her teachers, I'm sure, loved her too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
A little star student. How is your son doing? I won't use his name, just for his protection, but how's he doing? I know it must be tough for him.
He's actually doing pretty well. We're homeschooling now, just to kind of stay out of school for a while, just in case. But so that's going well. And I think overall he's doing very fine. He wasn't there at his dad's. He hasn't been there for quite a while, even before Autumn passed. He wasn't there for a year before. I just at one point refused to bring him back because of all the abuse he was telling me about. And Brett and Sarah never really did anything about it, tried to get him back or ask about him or anything.
They seemed not to abuse Autumn at the time.
Right. Even according to it was only.
So they just basically had a scapegoat at all times.
Yep.
I know you're doing the Have a Happy Heart Fridays campaign on the page, which is adorable. Do you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was actually my sister-in-law that kind of came up with it. She's been helping me through all of this, been really great and helping me organize everything. She kind of came up with that. I think she just did it one day and kind of decided to make it a thing. So every Friday we try to do something. Or we'll do it on any day, whatever day seems fit for it. Tip somebody a little more than usual, or pay for somebody's food, or send somebody flowers, just little things like that to kind of show that we're supporting other people just like they supported us.
That's nice. And have a happy heart was Autumn's motto?
Yeah, she kind of always told me to have a happy heart, not a sad heart.
Oh.
She wrote that on some things too. Yeah, it just kind of stuck with me, and I thought it fit well for her memory.
Yeah, definitely. That's really sweet. She was just so caring about everyone, and it's just beautiful, a way to remember her like that.
Yeah, definitely.
You saw her last in January of last year, was it?
Right.
So she was able to see her baby sister?
Yes, she came to the hospital the day she was born for a few hours, and then the 26th was the end of my week, so she was there for a whole week, and so she got to see her, but she was only a couple weeks old at that point.
I bet she was just in love with her.
Oh, she was, and she always wanted to pick her clothes out for her every day and, watch me do everything, feed her, change her diaper, and everything like that, hold her all the time.
So she had a maternal instinct for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with her, she had the other younger siblings too, so she was kind of used to being around the little kids.
You had said Sarah and Brett were making your life miserable for a long time.
Yeah, pretty much since the day I met Sarah. I mean, just because Brett kind of went from our relationship to their relationship, so her and I didn't get along very well from the beginning. Just trying to control my kids from day one and making them call her mom and trying to take over the mother role right away.
And did that slow down a little when she had her own kids, or did she keep that up?
No, she kept that up.
It sounds like she really had like a control issue.
Yeah, for sure. It was very frustrating, and there's not a whole lot that you can do, honestly.
No, not really. When did the abuse start with your son?
The first incident was, I believe, in 2016 when had come home. Well, him and Autumn came home, and he had a big bruise on his cheek, and he said that he got it from playing with his brother. Eventually, Autumn said something like Sarah hit him and he fell and hit the bed. And then I asked him if that was true and to tell me what happened. And then he confirmed that she did. I went to the police department the next day to talk to them about it. And that's when the first case had opened, but it ended up just being a family assessment because it was the first case open. So it didn't really go anywhere. It was kind of a mess. Yeah, it just ended up they believed what Sarah had to say, and which was that she just grazed him and he fell on his own.
And when was it that you stopped taking him over there?
That was October of 2019. So that year was really bad. There was a couple cases open, a couple different ones that had ultimately closed. And in October of 2019, there was actually a current one open that was just kind of dragging on there. It seemed like Child Protection was just dragging it on, having me get him blood tests and go through all these hoops and eventually closing it. But my son had told me that he had to stay up, overnight doing chores. And if he was caught sleeping, Sarah would push his jaw and his head together and make him stick his tongue out and bite on his tongue. He would have to swallow Dawn dish soap several times and he would puke that up. And just seeing him confess all this to me and break down, that was the most he's ever broken down in front of me and the most he's ever confessed to me. And I just stopped bringing him. I just refused to bring him after that.
Yeah. And it's amazing they didn't cause any problems.
Yeah. I mean, just very little, just like, saying that they're going to bring me to court for contempt and, just saying a lot of different things, but never actually asking for him or even never asked him how he was and there were several times where I said, did you want him to call you? I never got a response. They didn't want him for Christmas or Easter or anything like that.
Yeah, it kind of says a lot. They weren't in it to be parents of the year, that's for sure.
Right. And that kind of hurt him, just the part of feeling unwanted, but him and I discussed it many times, and ultimately he was relieved more than sad. He missed his siblings, but he was glad that he wasn't there.
Yeah, I bet. Congratulations on your engagement. Do you have a wedding date planned yet?
No, we're kind of waiting till 2023. Just kind of wait till all the every court thing is over with, so we don't have to deal with both things.
I hope you guys have nothing but happiness going forward. I mean, you certainly deserve it.
Thank you.
My heart goes out to Kelsey, Justin, and all of Autumn's siblings. Autumn's death was an incomprehensible loss, and I have no doubt she would have grown up to be an amazing person, because even at not quite 9 years old, she already was an amazing person. Her obituary read, Autumn has always loved being with family and being actively involved with everything. She just completed 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary in Elk River, Minnesota. Her kind spirit, abundance of energy, and willingness to help everyone is an inspiration to everyone that has known her. She loved to draw and color beautiful pictures. Special notes to the family were also common. She loved the outdoors and had a passion for gymnastics. She often dressed up to put on a show to show off her dance moves. She loved to sing and dance. Autumn was creative, kind, helpful, and determined. She will be missed and remembered by us all. Just so you can hear Autumn's sweet little voice, Kelsey shared a few video clips with me. In this one, Autumn and her brother are opening a present they received in the mail.
What's this, Mom? What's this?
It's like sweet tarts, I think.
Oh. Awesome! A finger hand! I am a hand and I am Here's another ball! It's two fingers. Here's more balls. Here's another ball. We both have fingers! Yeah, you can reach your hand in there when mine's in there. Another bouncy ball! Oh my, this is a huge one!
What do you say to Hannah?
Thank you, Hannah! Thanks, Hannah!
Here's Autumn speaking into a voice-activated electronic journal.
Transfer. Autumn.
Finally, here are a couple clips of Autumn singing.
Girl is on fire. My mom is on fire. In my bones, you believe, I still believe. All those things I did say, record goes inside my brain. On the street and out tonight, can you hear my voice? This is not fight. He cracked my life song, bringing my right song.
Rest well, Autumn. You will never be forgotten. My sources for this episode were the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, People, KSTP5 Eyewitness News, CBS Local Minnesota, Bring Me the News, Dare's Funeral and Cremation Services, The Mirror, The Scottish Sun, KARE 11, Facebook, KNSI Radio, Lakeland PBS, the Elk River Star News, Kelsey Kruse, and the Minnesota Department of Corrections website. That's it for this week. Join me next week for another story. If you like the show, please follow or subscribe to Suffer the Little Children on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening app. And please leave me a 5-star rating and a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. Visit the website at sufferthelittlechildrenpod.com, where you can listen to episodes or become a patron for rewards ranging from a shout-out by name on the show to bonus content and exclusive gifts. Follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Suffer the Little Children Pod, and on Twitter and TikTok at STLCpod. View photos related to today's episode on Facebook and Instagram. For more stories like the one you heard today, visit sufferthelittlechildrenblog.com. This podcast is researched, written, hosted, edited, and produced by Lane. All music for the show is licensed from audiojungle.net. Email tips, comments, questions, or case suggestions to sufferthelittlechildren.pod@gmail.com. For more information about preventing or reporting child abuse, visit childhelp.org or call your area's child abuse hotline. If you see something, say something. Until next week, bye everyone.